here we are at Steam Game Festival. I hope everything's working. I mean, this is the first time that I'm setting this up, uh, so I hope it works. We don't normally stream this kind of content or stuff. So thank you for joining the stream. We are the development team of NovaMundi, or at least the current development team, uh, because we have had like different um, smaller teams or bigger teams, depending on, I don't know, depending on what's going on in the project. Anyways, we have been developing this game for a couple years now. Um, and the idea with this stream is, of course, getting or responding to any of your questions. Um, yeah, we're live. We're just checking the chat to make sure that everything was working. So feel free to ask anything about the project. And yeah, Camilo is here, David is here. Camilo has been the developer, the main developer for all the 3D aspects of the game and all that stuff for since the beginning of the project. While I have been mostly doing the procedural generation and the UI and gameplay aspects, but he's done like the hard 3D part and graphic programming. And David is the visual artist of the project. So so yeah, did you guys want to say anything? Maybe you want to introduce yourself, Camilo?
Sure. So my name is Camilo Ramirez. As Santiago said, the programmer for the boring part of the game, the 3D aspects, the making sure that the engine is running and all of that.
Cool. And David? No, sorry, you were
Hi.
Hi. Go ahead.
I'm David. I've been the main artist for NovaMundi. Pretty much everything you see in the game, in the graphical sense, it's being done by me at this point.
That's right. So yeah, this is going to be pretty informal because we did not prepare anything. We are just going to talk a bit and play. And go ahead and share my screen so that you guys can see the game working. While we do this, we can talk a bit about the story or the history of the project. Maybe Camilo, what do you remember? What do you remember, like how everything started? That's like about 2 years ago.
Man, it has actually changed a lot since the start, because we were originally doing it not necessarily in a 3D world. It was mostly like a map. And one of the main things that we wanted to achieve was to create a whole planet, and that you can travel in real time distances from different parts of the world. And that proves a lot of that brings a lot of challenge of what you do in the middle of the sea when there's isn't really that many activities. So I remember that we scoped it down basically because of that. The idea was to try and focus on stuff that were actually fun, like the actual exploring and making discoveries, instead of running just in the blue sea for most of the time.
Yeah, I remember that, and that was a challenge. I mean, we tried to make it fun, like adding that storm mode where you had to maneuver the ship, but that never really worked.
Yeah, there's in the it was an interesting experience nonetheless, because it broke the challenges of how do you create a world in 3D, mostly in the sense of numerical precision of what happens if you have a unit somewhere in a different part of the world, and how do you interact with each other. And we saw different glitches, like the characters were not behaving right. So it was still a very good experience.
Yeah, yeah. Technically, it was good. I remember one thing from back then, since we were trying to like load the entire map of the world. We had that issue with the scale of the mountains because we got that geographic data, which I mean from the real world, from satellite data, and the problem is that the mountains, everything was like very shallow because the continents are so wide. I mean, and compared to the width of the continents, well, the mountains are not very high. So we thought that it was not working, but in reality, it was like a too real, and we had to exaggerate the height of the mountains for it to make any sense.
Yeah, that's right. It was. I guess it is the kind of thing that you have to see from the distance of, oh, this is the whole world. But when you are in the middle of a mountain, you don't necessarily see that.
That's right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and like do some very quick explanation of the game. If anyone has any questions, well, we are streaming on Twitch, also on Steam directly, and also on Facebook. Trying to keep an eye on all the three channels and see and catch any questions. Actually, I'm going to open Twitch because I don't have that open here. Um, because yeah, that's like the main point of this stream, just like getting responding to any questions that players may have. So this is the game currently. NovaMundi is the Spear of Chaken, and this is where we are after a lot of discussion on the team. As Camilo mentioned, initially this was a game of exploration, like from the European perspective, and it has changed a lot. Uh, right now, you are actually a member of the indigenous people called the Muisca, which is one of the cultures that live in South America in the territory of nowadays Colombia, and your mission is to repel the Spanish invasion. So yeah, let's go ahead and just play a little bit. The main inspirations for the game, this is a strategy game, and the main inspirations are games like Seven Cities of Gold, which is a pretty raw colonization or conquest simulation. But from that game, we are taking some elements like the overhead exploration or the overworld exploration. So basically, what we have here is a world that is generated procedurally. So every time you play, it's different, and you are exploring this land. And well, you have to complete a mission. So in this case, your mission is first to go to this town and talk with the cacique, the chieftain of sorts of the city, and warn him about what you saw. I forgot to share the trailer, but it's on the Steam page. I did not want to like waste time from the live stream, but basically that the backstory is that you travel to this land of the north to trade with other culture, the Tairona, and then you found out about the Spanish invasion force, and you go back to your town to tell your people about it and decide what to do. So that's what we are going to do. The game is mostly about managing your expedition. So in this case, we start with 9 people, and you have to keep track of their health and their make sure that they are like keep well fed and happy and all as you explore the land um, and complete your mission. So let's go ahead and enter the town. Um, Another important influence for this game is the Ultima series of role-playing games. So this can be seen when you talk with people. You talk basically using keywords. So in here we are talking with the cacique, which is the character we need to talk to. We tell him about what we saw, and yeah, he gives us a mission to go to another town. In this case, Somox, which is where the Iraka lives. Maybe, uh, David, you want to talk a little bit about the work that we did with the portraits, like all this art that we are doing right now, like the references that we used or something? I don't know. Do you want to talk about anything, maybe, David?
This was actually a really fun part in the development of the art for the game, because we decided that we wanted, as the game is procedural, we wanted also the art and the characters to be procedural. So we made a bunch of stuff that fit together like Legos. You see, there are a bunch of eyes, a bunch of ears, hairdresses, hairstyles, clothes. So everything fits together with everything else, and we can have every time you play the game, you get a new set of people unique for your game experience. You can get, yeah, a character no one else have seen before, and it came with their challenges, because it's not hard to make variety with such limited restrictions.
Yes,
But I think we are developing a good amount of, yeah, variations, and also with Supanake, with we decided to make something fun and not just random generated characters, but also uh, conceptualized, more designed characters for the main story. Uh, you see, they portray a little bit more of rendering, if you may say so.
that's right. Yeah, I think there's a challenge on doing the procedural aspect of the characters because they may feel a little like characterless. I mean, like bland or empty. So
Yeah,
for some characters, it makes sense to make them not random, but to give them like a unique expression and unique stuff that you are not going to see
yeah.
anywhere else.
You have no control of what the characters are gonna look like when they are all random. You don't want to be you don't want the main guys to look all goofy and silly. So it's fair to make them.
Yeah, and I think that that's also something very important on overall in other aspects of the game. For example, uh, and I think we have evolved to this during the development of the game because initially we wanted to do like this dream of a game that is completely generated procedurally, and every time you play it was different, stuff like that. Not only in the terrain but also the quests and all the different content. But in time, I think we have learned or we have evolved towards thinking that there needs to be like a mix of both things in order for the game to be more interesting. And besides the portraits, as David mentioned, there's also the question of the quests, right? Um, and like the actual characters. Here are a lot of characters, and we could have tried to generate like interesting content for them, like procedurally. And there's also actually some of them, so some of these characters are procedural like this one, but some others have like handcrafted or handwritten content, which allows us to have much more interesting, oh sorry, much more interesting interactions. For example, this guy tells us about how building fences is important for the Muisca culture, and this is actually like something that we wrote based on some research we did on the Muiscas. um, it's very hard to generate this content procedurally, and in the end it ends up like a lot of noise and players. I think the sad part is that if you manage to create this kind of content, this kind of like very involved content and intertwined with the game story or the wall story, uh, but the player will always believe that it's generated by a computer, and most of the times it's going to just ignore that and see it like as noise and don't pay a lot of attention to it. Um, so yeah, I think having a mixture of both things is very important for the to create that engagement with the players and for the game to be more interesting. Um, okay. This is actually something that also, besides the design of the characters, it's also seen on the quests. And what we are going to have in the full version of the game is in because well, the overall quest is not procedural. I mean, it's going to be the same every time, but what is going to change is the location of the different parts that you gotta go, and of course, like all the events that happen while you are completing that mission. But yeah, for example, we're going to hand design the quest that you do when you arrive to each mission, so so that they have like a unique personality, I think. So yeah, the first quest that we have is going to the city of Suamox. So that city is here at the north. This is like the auto map that as you explore the land, it's going to be filled. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and go there. And in the way, oh wait, actually we need to get some people first. So I think the cycle of the game is well, you need to keep an eye on your expedition and the the supplies of the expedition and the people that you are carrying. Um, Initially, we get some money and we need to decide what units we are going to hire into the expedition. All the units have different stats and different abilities, so I kind of like having a balanced party. So let's take different kinds of units. The Guardian, the Gauge are like the have a very high attack but not that high defense, while the Guardians have a lot of HP but not cannot attack very much. And then the archers, well, of course they have range attack. So let's take three archers and two of these guys, and also let's take a bandage, two bandages, and some food. 3 days of food, and let's travel north. So in the UI, well, you can see that there are like three main elements. Well, this is the status panel where you can see like the status of your expedition, your health, your supplies, and your fatigue. And there's the navigation panel where you can see the where you are and what direction you are traveling to. One important thing here, and this is actually quite recent, is one main part of the game is like not getting lost, right? And up until recently, it was very hard to get lost because I mean you have like a completely accurate auto map that like was updated automatically. But right now, recently we added this, so when you are traveling in the jungles, if you're deep into the jungle, besides getting like a limited range of vision and like a penalty for speed and well, and also like the possibility of uh, like accidents and stuff like that, you can also lose track of your location, right? And if this happens, well, then the auto map is disabled while you recover like your bearings. Um, I'm going to show a little bit about, more about that uh, in a bit because we got like another event, which is like we have the possibility of ambushing a couple of enemies. Um, So yeah, I think that was one of the reasons, or the main reason I decided to do this game in 3D. As Camilo mentioned, initially it was a 2D game, but the idea of making it in 3D is it's very hard to get lost in a 2D game because you always have like points of reference, right? Like it's like very if the camera doesn't rotate, then you have like strict directions south, north, west, and east, and it's hard to represent or to move in different directions, especially in your if you're in a grid. Um, so yeah, that's one of the reasons we went 3D because we wanted it to be in some occasions hard to know what the actual direction you were traveling into.
Yeah, before you start the combat, like one of the things, obviously, I mean, you can still kind of walk in the general direction. of where you were going if you enter into a forest. Like, I mean, here you enter because you want it, but if it's a forest that is actually in your path, well, you can also, keep traveling in that same general direction. But you may also find some other stuff in the middle that are going to make you have to change direction. Um, so yeah, it's very well, not very easily, but it is now kind of a possibility to get lost.
Yeah, and actually, this is something that I also added very recently. But in addition of uh, being able to lose track of where you are, when you are moving in a forest, you will also deviate slightly from your path. So you cannot really go straight. It kind of, the idea is to emulate the feeling of, well, you are losing, the forests are not plain. I mean, you have to go like dodging trees and like cliffs and small rivers, stuff like that. So you kind of like walk on a straight line, right? And also, since you are into the jungle, then you don't have like points of reference that can help you guide, like to see if you're going in a straight direction. So we
So
are going.
something I don't know. I don't know if you implemented something on this, but does the compass gets affected if you're in the forest?
Yeah, it also gets stuck.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going to see that after this battle. And when we are in the battle, we can get some thoughts from David on the battle aspects as well. Uh, this is like when you are exploring, things can happen, and this is one of these things. If you are inside the jungle, you have the possibility of ambushing people, or you can also be ambushed. In this case, we have the possibility of ambushing this party of two enemies, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And this is the combat mode. Well, we have a lot of people versus just two of them. Um, but yeah, the combat mode is where there are the biggest influences from games, from RTS games like Age of Empires and stuff like that. This is not an RTS because you are not building stuff or gathering resources to build stuff. But the combat aspect is like really has a lot of influences from RTS games. So I'm going to skip this tutorial. And yeah, here we have some of the units, the native units or the indigenous units, which we have been doing recently. David, you want to maybe share a little bit about the process that has been um, into doing these units, maybe?
Yeah, the units they were a little bit challenging because we, well, while we are designing them and developing them, uh, we were also choosing the size and the scale of the unit in the overworld. So we have to have compromises on the level of detail we use on each unit. So if you are just using this camera, you're gonna lose a lot of detail. It's gonna be wasted detail. So we have to make units readable and really easy to understand which unit is which. If you have a blowgunner, an archer, or a warrior, the silhouette is gonna be recognizable easily. So yeah, it was interesting to develop.
Right. Yes, and I think we're still on it. I mean, we are still like kind of getting to that balance between the level of detail that we want to put into the units, and yeah, I mean, like based on the distance from the camera that you get. And there's also been that challenge of like coming up with their appearance, because there is not a lot of documentation about how these people were equipped for warfare, or how they were. Yeah, so we had like to fill some gaps, right?
Yeah, we
Based.
have to take some liberties,
Uh,
creative
that,
decisions.
that's fine. They probably had that ray gun we added.
Okay, maybe that was like a hidden artifact that they had, but We are not supposed to talk about that. That's like a secret.
All right.
So yeah, that's how combat works. You can like pause any time to decide what to do with your unit. You select what you want to do with the units, and some of them may have special abilities. And yeah, in combat you get injured, uh, so you must take care after combat about your injuries, stuff like that. Um, all right. So yeah, let's check into this. What we were talking about, getting lost in the jungle. So the compass stopped working. We lost track. We don't know where we are, and this can be especially dangerous if you are like low on supplies and looking for a city to resupply. And also if I walk straight, the party is going to start moving like in different directions. Uh, so you cannot like just rely on, okay, so I will enter the forest heading straight north, and I will end up like at the other side of the forest looking north. That's not going to happen. So you need to be correcting your path while you travel, and that if you are have already lost track, maybe dangerous. All in all, you want to avoid getting into the jungle if possible, right? So if you're traveling to a location, you will only want to go into the jungle if that's the last resort of you are hiding from enemies or stuff like that. Um,
Can you talk a little bit about the like the art direction, the how we landed on this current look? Because I really like it, and it's something that we definitely struggle with on like the forests, the rendering, and all of that.
that
Yeah,
was
that's an ongoing battle in the art department. We are mainly inspired by the art of a Japanese artist called Hiro Isono. He was a painter mainly focused on landscapes. He has amazing work done illustrating jungles, really dense. Yeah, what do you expect in South American jungles? So if you are if you have ever played Secret of Mana and you watch the cover of that the artwork of the game, you can see a big tree and a lot of detail. Well, that artwork is was made uh, by Hiro Isono. If you see the artwork for NovaMundi, it's really an homage and inspiration from that work. We wanted to make the jungle of this game because it was a really big part of the game, a really dense jungle. It was really hard in the performance area because we wanted a lot of detail. Uh, when the game when the game was being developed at the beginning, we have these trees, these balls. We call them the melons. They were really low detail models, but this is a game about exploration, about crossing the jungle, looking what's laying deep in the jungle. So we really early we understood we could not go for that route. So we have to really take the time and develop this jungle you're looking right now, this dense jungle running at what 70, 60 frames per second. It was really challenging, and this is a work in progress. We are developing more variety. We have a lot of plans ahead about adding grass, adding more flora, more fauna, more life to the jungle, more things to see, more things to discover. But basically, yeah, the inspiration was that a little snippet of a dense jungle with really fun things to discover and explore.
yeah. I think that was like we from the first day of the project we had this challenge of how do we want to represent the jungles. That's one thing. There's also other things like the rivers and stuff like that. which we are still like tackling and seeing what's the best way, because a main aspect of the game is this representation of the game in a weird scale, right? Because you are supposed to be like traveling in a big area between cities and stuff like that. So this is not really like a one-to-one scale thing. And we had a lot of references from games like Ultima, Shroud of the Avatar, like all the Final Fantasy games in their overworld, and we
Anu.
I know, and we wanted to like to do something like that. But yeah, we struggled a lot initially because we had different representations, like completely flat terrains with just like textures of forest rendered over them. Then, but that looked extremely flat and weird. I mean, it looked like you were walking on, in a map, which may be reasonable when the game is when that's like a secondary interaction in the game, but this is our main interaction. The player doesn't see anything but this. I mean, as we saw when you go to a town, um, you just see like a logical representation of the town, like with the buildings and the inhabitants. So the overworld is where the player spends like 80% of the game time, and it has to be like visually appealing. So we went with that evolution of having like very low poly forests, like just yeah, like melons, and yeah, I think we tried a lot of stuff. I mean, we tried a lot of different visual techniques to do this, like to be able to render a lot of models or a forest which is composed by a lot of actors. Sorry, a lot of models, and do it like with an adequate performance. But yeah, I think what we come up with, and I think actually that was like one last minute change. I'm not sure if David remembers, but at some point of time, I had kind of given up with that and gone to back to the low poly route, but then
Yeah.
decided it was not going to work. So we decided to instead fight for to have like a complete. Oh, he ran away. We're bad hunters. We were trying to hunt a deer, but we lost him.
Also, a really big challenge was the camera angle, because when you're developing in Unity, a lot of stuff is made for first-person games. These trees, these textures, the terrain, everything is a pain, because the camera angle mess up with all the shaders, mess up with the way things are built in. So yeah, the shadows, the illumination, everything was a little bit harder.
Yeah, and actually we still had that issue with the grass because Unity's built-in support for billboards, like the technique that they have to render like grass in an optimal way, doesn't really work with this camera and with the kind of uneven terrain that we have. And that's one of the reasons we still haven't been able to include the grass, like a proper grass texturing into the game, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of a generic problem with just grass in general. Because if you think about it, it's if you were to see a blade of grass from the top, it will almost also disappear. The real thing that adds like the volume is the wind and the fact that the grass is not entirely flat.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think that's one of the things we want to work on, like for the definitive version, like being able to solve that technical issue. So we are, I think, go ahead, Camilo or David.
No, I was wondering. This is kind of another type of battle, different than the one that you encountered before. Um, so it's just that I didn't saw the little tag and the little title before the combat, so I wasn't sure on the event.
this was like you encounter an enemy. I forgot, like face to face or something like that. Uh, so when you are on the plains, this is what is mostly going to happen, right? Because you cannot hide, right? So you encounter them directly, and then you are like on equal um, grounds, right? Like face to face. Um, So, well, yeah, okay. I was going to say that. Go ahead, Camilo.
Sorry.
I,
No, I was wondering if, or I don't know if that's what you were going to say, but to talk a little bit on the strategy of like why is the combat not immediately playing, but but is it pause, and you can also pause as we saw in the previous combats that you had.
yeah, yeah. I'm going to talk about that, but I also wanted to mention that as days pass, things start getting more dangerous. So as we can see here, we are already seeing some Spanish units like these arquebusiers and these archers, and they start getting mixed with the enemy native or indigenous units. Um, And yeah, well, so the combat is still evolving a lot, right? But the idea is that you should be able to take your time to think your strategy and think like what will be the best way to preserve the health of your units and to make the best use of them. For example, this explorer, I don't want to risk him because if he dies, then um, we lose the ability to auto map and to orient ourselves. So we don't want that, right? And we have a lot of plenty of other warriors, so let's keep him here in the back row. Then the archers, I will try to keep them also a little bit behind, and then I'm going to send the guardians to face this 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 enemy here, which is the strongest melee unit that they had. And then what I mostly almost always do is I send these strong units to kind of flank and attack the range units from behind. Uh, this time it will have been ideal for it to be on the left side because that way we could have sent in against this arquebusier, but we can also attack this archer here. So yeah, we unpause the combat and then starts unfoiling, and we can like change our minds anytime. Well, that was a bug. Um, that's new.
When
Um,
a little voxel there
That
didn't load.
explosion is actually pretty cool if you watch it.
luckily, that's still. I mean, that bug should not be on the Steam version on the demo on Steam because this is like a local dev build, and I think that's because I deleted a lot of assets that I thought we were not using, but I was wrong. It seems. So yeah, I think from here we can, for example, change our strategy and tell these units to go and attack this arquebusier and these two archers to attack him. And as it unfolds, we can change what we're planning. So here we are sending this strong unit versus this ranged unit. We have 3 units attacking this one, but 2 should be enough. So we can switch the strategy and attack this another ranged unit. And yeah, and also manage like the battery of range attack units so that we can like direct a lot of firepower towards a specific place. So yeah, I think there are already like some interesting tactical choices, but this continues evolving. We're going to have units that give bonuses, like to nearby units, so attack bonuses or stuff like that if they are nearby, and yeah, similar stuff.
Ooh, biscuits.
Biscuits. This is like Spanish loot, and actually I'm lost because okay, let's go north. I think okay. Well, the demo has a limit, a 6 days limit. So after day 6, I wonder if we're going to manage to go to Swamox, which is the first destination. Um, we already are low on food, so we're going to have to uh, either get loot from the enemies or hunt, or hopefully we will find a a hut or a intermediate city where we can resupply because else we may start starving. Hmm. David, are there any other aspects, like from the art, that you would like to talk about?
Um, well, the name of the game is expanding the variety because when you create a map randomly, uh, there is a big chance of big repetition. So in the art department, there is always room for improvement, for expansion, uh, for more iterations. So yeah, keep tuned on that. We are hoping to make a more uh, lively jungle in the future.
Can you talk a little bit, Santiago? Can you talk a little bit about the camping that you're just doing?
All right. So the camping aspect is very important because, well, you need to keep the fatigue of your expedition low, right? As they walk, they start getting tired, and you have if they are too tired, then that affects the speed at which you are moving, and that affects how far can you go with your supplies, right? So everything is like kind of tied together, and camping. Let me pick up this encampment. Um, Basically, we are as oh, sorry. Let me kill these guys first, and then we can go back to the camping. Um, as you are exploring the land, you are carrying. In this case, we are carrying these heavy tents, right? And that is something that we decided to do because of the advantages that it has. Oh, sorry. Let me escape from here. Well, we almost get our explorer killed. Um, we are carrying these tents, which are very heavy, and as I mentioned, if your expedition is under a lot of burden, then you get tired more quickly, and that may be problematic. But having a tent is useful because if you sleep on it, then you will have two of your units recovering HP much more quickly, and also prevent them from getting sick. So that's all. I mean, that happens when you establish a camp. You establish a camp here. You select if you could be carrying more tents. In this case, we have a single tent, and you kind of, depending on what you decide to build, it takes some time, right? In this case, it's a single tent and it takes 1 hour to build. And then when you go to sleep here, well, you recover your fatigue and also your health. And since the tent is already set up here, I could just leave it there, right? I don't have to pick it up. If I don't pick it up, then I can move much quicker because I am much less burdened, and then I can explore more land for the same amount of resources, and then come back to rest. Right? That's something that we could do. So yeah, that's a bit of how it works.
Yeah, sort of like a base camp. If you gather information that there are maybe something around the area, resources of you can ask in the cities about like what's around, and they're gonna tell you some sort of general things, and this is why you will do it, right? Just you will set up camp, and that will allow you to scope the area easier.
That's right. Um, in previous versions, you could even like build cities out of the camps, but we scrapped that. Well, here's a river. Maybe Camilo, you want to talk a little bit about the rivers and all the fun that we have had with the river?
I didn't know you could just walk over it. No, I was playing the demo, then I was just nope, I'm going somewhere else. Rivers are a really interesting thing in video games in general. Even if you are doing them by hand, I guess it's a bit easier since you can just say, okay, this is how they're going. But if you are even then, if you are doing something, I don't remember how it works in real life with rivers, if they or even the words in English, but when they become like two, or they yeah, um, it's like how do you do that joint in the middle and with the flow especially, and in a procedural environment, it becomes even more complex, especially if you're working with a 3D terrain as we are doing here, because usually you will like build the sides of the river and then you will put a plane on top and call it a day. But since you have a really weird terrain due to the algorithm, that it becomes a real challenge to add something like how it's looking right now, which is quite well actually. You're muted, Santiago.
Yes, before I go on with my adventure with the rivers, maybe David, do you want to talk a bit about the visual aspects of how to render a river in 3D, like, and make it look like good?
Yeah, I was wondering actually if we are using right now the texture. Uh, you do you remember the whole process we have for the rivers, for the textures, the animated textures?
You're muted, Santiago.
Sorry. Yeah, we're using it. I just darkened it, and this is an entire thing because our rivers blue. They are not actually blue. It's all like a trick of light, right? And I use like, well, water is transparent. I am not an expert on physics or optics or stuff like that, but water is transparent, right? So actually, it looks blue because of some phenomena. Camilo knows more about it, I think. And probably that David too. What I mean is that from the art aspect and some references that we had. Uh, from aerial photographs, well, rivers actually in this area look a bit darker. So I just darkened it, but we are using like the texture that David did. It was just a little bit bluish first.
Yeah, they are a little bit muddy. If you watch a picture of the Amazon River, you can
Right.
see it's a little bit muddy, and a little bit dense. It's
Yeah.
not blue at all.
So,
Well, yeah, go ahead, please.
something that you can see in this shot, I don't know if how well can you see it on whatever stream you're in, but especially on the river on the right, and it's like the flow is going upwards, but when it turns to the right, it also follow that same direction, and that's a very complex thing to achieve, especially right there in the joint. You can see some artifacts, and the reason is because we're using some textures to simulate the flow of the river itself, right? It's not a physics simulation of water particles going that way. So that's also like one of the biggest challenge of technical challenge on this thing.
Am I muted? I hope I'm not muted.
No.
No, no.
Yeah, I mean the rivers are an entire world. I mean, and we actually that's something that we were wondering if we were going to include like on the initial versions of it because of all the work that it entailed. As Camilo mentioned, because many aspects, including the procedural generation and placement of them, the representation from a technical perspective in a 3D world, which is procedurally generated,
That word is so hard.
and also the actual visual representation from the artistic perspective. So yeah, I mean, it was I almost had to rebuild the entire procedural generator for the terrain in order to accommodate the rivers, and it's still not a perfect solution, but it works a little bit. We're still improving. One of the first things that I was trying to do was like simulate the rainfall over the existing terrain, and then trying to like get a line, the simulator, like the current of the river. There's a lot of research. I think I shared with the team that, as Camilo mentioned, this is not a physical or physics-based simulation. This is just like a very simple way of representing the rivers, just for the gameplay's sake. Um, but yeah, what I ended up doing for now is the entire map is built around the rivers. Because other challenge that we had was the actual slope of the river, right? Because it flows downwards towards the ocean, and yeah, I think mixing everything together, like the way that we were generating the polygons or the polylines or the how would you call them, Camille? Like this actual geometry for the rivers.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean the river is built on a polyline, which is you take a line and you build geometry around it. The complex part is really the corners part.
yeah,
I was wondering actually on what I said before and the fact that you can actually cross you can just walk through the river. Is that going to change? Is that going to be the way it is?
yeah, it's going to change. Eventually, it's going to have some risks, right? I mean, you should be able to cross it, but should have some risk.
Gonna find some fish.
And yeah, there's gotta be a fishing mini game, of course.
Mm, maybe a bridge to cross over.
Yeah, maybe you can like carry like huge bridges around or have to check.
It
Cross.
becomes that stranding.
Yeah, yeah, we could simulate that stranding. Um,
Is this the town, the city that you were supposed to reach?
yeah, we managed to get here in 5 days. It was supposed to take like 2 days, but I was just like walking around randomly and almost didn't make it.
Can you talk a little bit on the how is it going to proceed after you visit the city, like after the demo ends?
Yeah, actually, the demo doesn't end. I mean, in this version, it doesn't end as you enter the city. It just takes like 6 days, but you are not going to manage to. We are not going to manage to go anywhere else. Um, so as I mentioned, like the quest structure is, well, you get to this city, which is located in a different part every time. Maybe sometimes you play, you will not be able to reach the city because you met with many dangers or stuff. Anyways, if you manage to get here, then you talk to the Iraka, which is like the supreme priest of the Muisca, in the Temple of the Sun. This is the Temple of the Sun in Suamox. And in here, you tell him about the invaders, and he tells you that you gotta unite the Muisca to fight against these invaders, and that is the only way to survive. And then you have to travel to all the towns and tell them that whatever. And yeah, so you that's like the main point of the game. You need to be able to manage your expedition and manage your people and make them survive in combat and get to all the towns. And once you go to every town, then you have to complete and to convince them to join the alliance. And to do that, you're going to need to do something for them, like finding a special artifact or defeating an enemy or finding something or someone that they lose. For example, for Tundama, which is one of the towns, the quest is going to be like finding the lost cacique Tundama, and you have to go to the mountains to find him. In order for, well, they say that if you find him, then they're going to join, most probably. And yeah, so every time is going to have like a unique and almost fixed quest, which is not procedurally generated. I mean, the quest is the objective of the quest is the same, even if the actual way to complete it is not going to be the same every time you play because the locations are in different places or there are some details that are going to change. But overall, there's going to be also a lot of narrative around that quest because that's good, I believe. So yeah, as we talk with him, now we have a lot of towns to visit here, and then we can start like asking around. As Camilo mentioned, as you enter the towns, you can ask what is nearby. So in this case, we are interested in what towns are nearby, and this guy tells us that Bacasquile is to the east. We can add that to our journal, and then here in the journal we can like see a summary of all the things that we have done. And near Somos, Bacasquile is to the east. So that means that somewhere around here is Bacasquile. And after we resupply in the town and get new people into we have a lot of money now, so because we have won some fights, so we can get some Gecha warriors. Maybe a backup explorer. I'm not sure. I think we can take. Well, actually, our explorer is pretty injured. Mm, no, I think it would be more worth it to get another tent. and we're out of money.
Is there any advantage to have multiple explorers or just the one?
Yes, if you have multiple explorers, each one of them is going to increase your exploration range, which is very important because you're going to be able to see more of the world at the same time. But you need to have at least one. I mean, if all of them die, then well, yeah, that makes sense. Let's get another one. We can rest in the wilderness. We don't need a tent.
So can you get like 50 and reveal the whole map at once?
No, that's our limit. I think
You're already breaking the game.
actually I think you programmed that limit, Camilo. Maybe you already forgot.
Probably.
Yeah. So yeah, let's just go to the end of the demo. I mean, we are just like 1 day away or 2 days away. We can go to the east and try to find that other city. And yeah, this. Oh, I can also. Oh, that's a good topic for David, I believe. If you have time still, David, to talk about the architecture of the cities and all the work that we did for this and that we are doing and planning to do for these city models.
Yeah, there was actually already a remaster of that city you're looking right now. Uh, we start with a really low poly version of that town of Suomox. Well, the Muisca buildings generally, but we are at a point that we decide to, okay, let's go for more fantasy, more propositive, more creative way. We we stick to reality. We stick to what's accurate, but we propose over that. So if you are seeing the Temple of the Sun, for example, you see a very accurate, I will say, version of the Temple of the Sun that the real Muiscas use, but used, but I added a little bit of fantasy to it, a little bit more of gold, more tapestry, a little bit more of that, that visual appeal. So that has been the process with all the architectural design we made for the game. We take a realistic approach, a historic approach, but we improve on that for fantasy purposes.
Yes, and also in one of the many iterations that we had of the game, we actually created like a building for other kinds of cultures, like more fantasy cultures, like Mesoamerican, inspired by the Aztecs, and also nomadic, inspired by the Asian steppes,
Exactly.
nomads, and yeah, we are not no longer using that, as we decided to instead like try to portray the Muiscas in a pretty accurate way.
Yeah, I will say it's pretty accurate, but it's been stylized, as you will say.
Why you keep sending your explorer to?
I don't want him to die. Don't go to the front line, guy. You're going to die. He just, I don't know. He's too brave to hide in here. Um, Another thing that is worth mentioning about the towns is I think the towns are where there is like the biggest clash between the scales of the overworld and the
The
and your
units.
characters. Yeah, because we were thinking, for example, of adding some people moving around. I think we had that discussion this morning. But then are they going to look like tiny ants that are moving there in this small building? And
Yeah,
when
it
compared to
is.
the others, so it's a challenge because actually it's like a representation. I'm going to use this bridge, a representation um, of the town, but the town in reality is supposed to have a lot more huts, right? Not just the 5 or 6 huts that you see there. They are just like a representation of it. But then, yeah, it takes some work, or the player has to imagine that, right? That's like some compromise there for the player has to do. Actually,
Exactly.
I
And also, we didn't want to make a city that looks like it's completely desolated, a barren land. We want to inject a little bit of life. So there is a challenge. There's a challenge there to, yeah, to bring more life to the cities.
That's right. Think we're going to end up this demo being lost in this jungle because I traveled west instead of traveling east. So we are not going to find any city here probably, or maybe just small towns or stuff like that. Who
That'll
knows?
happen. Yeah.
So I think the demo is going to end anytime now. Yeah. So that's the demo. Um, it's limited, but there's already a lot. I mean, as I have mentioned hundreds of times, it's procedural. So the next time you play, everything is going to be different. And hopefully, it's going to be interesting to explore that new world that is generated. Um, so yeah, I think that's what I wanted to show about the demo. Um, do you have any other things that you guys wanted to share?
Mm. I hope you guys have fun with the demo and you could find really cool stuff in the game. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, that's right. So we have the Discord channel. You're invited to join and discuss the game. Of course, download the game and play around. Um, what else? Well, we had someone, another member of the team was planning to join, but not sure if he's going to make it. Probably not. Which um, there's yeah, that's another aspect that unfortunately we haven't been able to share in this stream, which is the actual audio part, right? All the music and all the, especially the music. I think that's the part that is currently more evolved. We still gotta do some work on the actual sounds and voices. Um, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to join, but hopefully he will. If not, I would also like to mention some other members of the development team that have participated like all these two years of development. Paul Pereda, who did a lot of work on the art aspect before David joined the team and still does sometimes from time to time. The entire team from Wolf Games, led by Juan David Baron, um, they took a lot of. I mean, there's still a lot of legacy from their work in the code and individual aspects, right? Like they kind of took the job of evolving or and defining the visual style of the units, and we have like followed their signs a lot. And as we create new units, we are basing ourselves on the style that they did, and work using that as a starting point. Who else am I forgetting? Oh, Fidel. Fidel is the writer, so he wrote a lot of the design of the characters and the missions that we are going to start like integrating into the new mode of the game. And I don't know who else am I forgetting. Probably someone.
The
Sorry.
player, obviously.
And you, the player,
The most important one.
the most important member of this team is you. So download the demo and defeat the Spanish. Um, all right. I think it's about time to end this stream. Thank you for watching. I think since I already paid the license for this software, I think I may do a lot of streaming tomorrow. Maybe um, I will post that on the social media. You can follow us at well /word.games/NovaMundi is like the main website. From there, you can like reach everything: the Discord channel, the Steam page. I just try to post. I hope it worked. I'm like just learning how to use this. Um, I did not see any questions, but I'm going to upload. Oh, I posted the wrong email, the wrong address. I'm going to post this video to YouTube. Um, So if you have any questions, post them there, and I will probably read them and reply to you. Uh, I think that would be it. So thanks for watching, and wishlist the game. Download the demo and wishlist the game. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.